Do you understand proprioception? That's,
like closing your eyes and knowing where you're...
Yep, exactly. And that's all dependent upon the receptors, because you have proprioceptors, and they just basically sense movement, joint position, as well as applied force or tension. So that's basically what tells you, like, even though my hand is here, like, I know that I just flexed it to 90 degrees. Like, I can tell the difference. And that's simply because of the proprioceptor within my skin and things. And those are sensory neurons.
So a way to think of it is just the connection between your brain and nerves and then the muscles and how that kind of tells you. Would you say like experience and memory plays a role in it?
I would say so. Muscle memory and things.
I don't know how you'd like do a trial of that with a kid, but
yeah,
I would, I guess, just be curious if they experience the same thing.
Yeah.
Or when you're younger.
So that's pretty much proprioception. You'll want to know that the Pacini corpuscles and Ruffini's endings are associated with the facial and joint proprioceptors. So that's like the chart at the beginning of the next page. So just know that the two major types of the proprioceptors for the facial and joint are the Pacini and Ruffini's. And then muscle proprioceptors are dealing with like muscle spindles and then the Golgi tendon organs. He never went over the inner ear information, so I wouldn't worry about that, especially if you didn't cover it in your class. Did he go over that with you guys at all?
Sure.
Okay, because he really doesn't look at that ever.
Yeah, I don't see why that'd be extremely important, considering everything we have to learn.
Yeah, so when it comes to the facial and joint proprioceptors, that's how you know like the position of a joint and how it changes according to how the joint is compressed and like how it becomes more stable versus dislocating and things. Do you understand like the Pacini corpuscles and then the Ruffini endings?
Not really.
So, let's see. The Pacinian only tell you about a movement of a joint. So, like it can say that I am moving my elbow and things, but it can't actually tell you the location of where I'm stopping. That's where the Ruffini endings come in place. So the Pacinian corpuscles, they tell me that I'm moving, but they can't tell me where I'm moving or how I'm moving. Like they can't say that this is flexion and this is extension. Whereas the Ruffini endings can tell you the position that your joint is at when it stops. So the main difference is that the Ruffini tells you the position, the static position.
So I don't want to be like difficult, but why?
Why is there a difference?
Well, yeah. Well, what's the point of knowing that?
Honestly, it's just a matter of like knowing how your body is working, because you need both of them in order to function and in order to have your brain understand, I guess, or interpret that information from the proprioceptors.
So these are like physical things in your body?
Yeah, so these are specific receptors inside your body, and when they are activated, they send signals to your brain, and your brain interprets it. And it all depends on where the signals are sent in your brain so that your brain knows how to interpret that information. So information sent from a Pacinian corpuscle would only tell you about movement. So your brain could only process that according to the movement. Whereas the Ruffini endings, your body can actually process the static position of that movement.
Okay, so maybe another question, this might be getting a little too deep, but if you didn't have Pacinian corpuscles, you could still do everything because the Ruffini would make up for it?
Yep, because the Ruffini does the movement as well.
But the other way around, if you lost your Ruffini endings and you closed your eyes and did this, I wouldn't know my arm stopped, like I would have thought it kept going?
You wouldn't be able to tell the static position.
Okay.
Like you wouldn't be able to tell, like, if I moved my arm, like I would know that I moved my arm, but I wouldn't know that I did extension.
Okay. That's right.
Or that like my angle in my joint is increasing. Like I wouldn't be able to tell that. Or even tell specifically by how much.
Okay.
So muscle spindles. Do you guys have any questions before I go on?
Nope.
Feeling okay? I guess I don't want to go over this information with you if you haven't gone over it yet, because this is pretty complex stuff, so I would like him to explain that before I try to explain it, if that makes sense. Trying to think. Do you have any other specific questions, Ross, with regards to? I mean, even if you have specific questions regarding the muscle spindles, the Golgi, or anything, I don't mind asking questions. I just don't want to explain the whole thing, and I just don't want to confuse you when he explains it.
Yeah, I'm coming tomorrow, so I can wait for that, because
Okay.
we won't have gone over this, so really between today and tomorrow I just need these next 4 pages, and
Okay.
that'll be good. So yeah, there's nothing, and I assume the same's true with not wanting to go over 8 pages. So.
Yeah. I can tell you what you'll want to know specifically. And it's mostly like with muscle spindles, like you want to know that they're sensitive to amount of stretch and the rate of stretch. So in its definition, it kind of points that out, but those are the two things that the muscle spindles are sensitive to.
Rate and amount.
Mm-hmm. And so that's a stretch reflex, or in other words, a myotatic reflex. So those bold words you do want to know. And you want to know the effects that it can have. So it can improve athletic performance. So such as like when someone's like throwing a ball, that's going to stretch, I believe it's your bicep right here. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to stretch it when you pull your arm back. And so the recoil is what's going to give you a greater force when you contract that muscle. Because if you stretch it to the point where it's going to bounce back, that's going to create an additional force to your contracting muscle, if that makes sense. So that's how it can improve athletic performance and things like the speed of a ball. It also prevents injury. So if a muscle or a tendon is stretched too much, then it will automatically contract to prevent injury from being overly stretched. And then the Golgi tendon organs are a reflex that causes a relaxation of the muscles. And so it's an inverse myotatic reflex because instead of the muscle spindles, they contract when the muscles contract when they are stimulated, whereas the Golgi tendon, they relax. And so that's related to stretching, like when you're trying to become more flexible. And so it can help increase the effectiveness of a stretch to improve a joint range of motion. So that's all with flexibility. So that's why when you stretch, if it's a gradual stretch, it causes that lengthening of your tendons, and so that makes you more flexible.